G'day everyone, welcome back to the channel. Bit of a different setup for the video today, and that's because I'm going to talk to you about breath work before runs, after runs, and breathing during runs. I've also got a couple of little tips to throw in today. One being anyone who's got a race event coming up or any sort of sporting event, or as a matter of fact, anything where you're getting in your head, you're getting a little bit nervous, a little bit of anxiety. I'm going to talk to you about a little strategy that I used on my first Muay Thai fight, and also anytime I'm getting in my head and I want to calm myself down and be able to remove the noise that's going on up here and get myself into a better frame of mind using breath work and this guy here. I'm also going to have to grab something else, which I'm going to show you in a few minutes time as we start to talk about breathing before, during, and after running. So what brings up this video today? Well, one of the most overlooked things in my own opinion when it comes to physical performance is probably our breath, and not in terms of just actually performing the task at hand, but a lot of the time being able to recover from the training that we're doing and perform in a peak state in whatever training session or event, whether it be a competition, whether it be a half marathon, whether you're having a fight, whatever it may be. If you breathe better, you're going to perform better. And one of the big things that we look at when it comes to performance is the state of our nervous system. So when it comes to a couple of the exercises that I'll take you through today, if your nervous system is constantly dysregulated, or if you're in a constant state of fight or flight, your recovery is going to be inhibited. So you're not going to see the same sort of adaptations. You're also going to carry a lot more fatigue, which means that combination of building fitness and reducing fatigue means there's going to be a lot of detriment to your performance as well. So on a day-to-day basis, let's think about how we breathe. One of the best things that I got from breath work over the years that I've been doing it, and I'm not someone that would sit there for 30 to 60 minutes a day doing breath work, but I would do little practices in the morning for 5 to 10, maybe more minutes, and obviously I was very in tune with my breath as I've been doing yoga over the years. And one thing this taught me is breath awareness. So throughout the day, I could notice at points if I was getting stressed or if I was really locked into a task, I'd start to notice when I was short of breath, and then I could catch myself and I could adjust it. And one of the simplest ways to do this is purely just doing nasal breathing, starting to breathe in through the nose and exhale through the nose. Something else that you add into this is traditionally what they would call yogic breathing. And this is where we combine diaphragmatic breathing right down towards the abdomen, into the rib cage, and all the way up into the chest, almost as if you're lifting the collarbones up. So you're getting the full capacity of your breath each time. And this allows you to actually become more efficient so you can breathe less. Believe it or not, breathing less is the thing that we wanted to aim to do. So how do we start to create breath awareness? This is going to tie into what we can do before a run or before any sort of training session, the breath work that we can do. And it's starting to sensitize to the depth and the rate of our breath, how much air that we're actually pulling into the body and how much we're removing, but also the speed at which we are doing so. So a simple exercise to teach you to do this is just starting to focus on breathing in through the nose, closing down through the lips. So if you're watching now and you want to sit here for a few moments, otherwise pause and find a time that you can do so later, all I'd invite you to do is start to close down the eyes a little bit. If you can get into a seated position, that'd be perfect. Otherwise, you could do this standing. It doesn't really matter. Just getting yourself comfortable, starting to close down through the mouth, taking a nice long inhale through the nose and exhale through the nose. Inhale, exhale. Inhale and exhale. Just continuing to breathe like that, in and out through the nose, starting to relax into the breath and the body, relaxing the mind. Just a little note to add in there. I'm not sure if the mic picked that up, but you can hear I've got a slight sniffle in the nose. So this is one thing to keep in mind. At times you can still have a blocked nostril or blocked nostrils, or if you're a little sick, it's going to be harder to breathe in through the nose. And that's where we can just start to focus again on the depth of each breath, making sure we're starting to create a little bit more space with each breath. And by that I mean what we're going to start to introduce now, being that each time you breathe, I want you to imagine as you inhale, you start to balloon out through the belly, pushing the belly button out, pushing out towards the obliques, and even deep into the lower back. After you've pushed out through the belly, which is our diaphragmatic breath, you start to expand through the rib cage. So we go belly, and then we start to expand out through the ribs, and then we expand up into the chest, almost lifting up into the collarbones. And as you exhale, you let it go from the chest as it draws into the spine. The ribs start to hug into the body, and then the belly button and the obliques start to draw back into the midline as well. So try that on your next breath. A nice long inhale through the nose, breathing into the belly, ribs, all the way up into the chest, lifting through the collarbones. Exhale from the chest, the ribs, and the belly. Inhale, belly, ribs, chest. Exhale, chest, ribs, belly. Now just continue that at your own rhythm now, just being light and gentle with each breath. I'm just going to continue to talk you through it or talk about it a little bit more. So one of the best things that we can start to do before we actually go for a run, if you think about the warm-ups we usually have, if you have one at all, I know sometimes for me a warm-up is just a slower jog developing into a run for 5 to 10 minutes at times. Some people do some dynamic stretching, some mobility work, maybe they've got some little muscle activation exercises that they're doing. But when do we intentionally focus on the breath? Being that running is an aerobic sport, right? It's an endurance sport. And predominantly, depending on the distances you're running, depending how you're running, the type of the sessions, it is largely going to be aerobic, meaning we need to utilize oxygen to help supply the energy to the muscles that we're using to keep running. However, a lot of us forget that breathing and breathing better is one of the best things that we're going to be able to do to increase our performance and deliver oxygen more efficiently. Just starting to think about how you could incorporate this maybe into your morning if you're someone that runs in the morning, or even if you just get 3 to 5 minutes, up to 10 minutes if you really want, if you're training in the afternoon or the evening, just before you run, and start to focus on expanding or extending each breath, creating that little bit more space, that little bit more length, starting to open up through the rib cage and expand through the lungs. So you're actually creating more capacity for air to move in and out of the body. And now, if there's something that you haven't noticed already on top of this, pay attention to how your mind feels right now, how your body feels. How does your nervous system feel? Chances are you've started to dial into more of a parasympathetic rest and digest state. Your nervous tone has started to down-regulate. So if you're someone who is going for a long run or an easier run and you struggle to keep the heart rate down, I guess not get that feeling of anxiety or just feeling really overstimulated, this is one of the better things that you can do for a run. I'm not going to say it's going to automatically bring your heart rate down 20 beats at any given pace, but just going into that run with a little bit more of a calm frame of mind is going to be very helpful. One of the other things that we're going to lead into here now is as you are breathing in and out through the nose, what we want to look at when we're actually running is starting to breathe through the nose, so in through the nose. And the way I would usually recommend is out through the mouth, but this is dependent on the type of run that I'm doing too. So if you're someone who's at the point where you can literally go out for an, in quotations, easy run, and you manage to stay in zone 2, you keep a very low heart rate, this is typically where I'd use strictly nasal breathing, so out through the nose. But as it starts to ramp up a bit more, that's where I start to breathe in through my nose and out through my mouth. As pace starts to increase, even this morning's run was a great example. I was just hitting my marathon pace. I have to just speed that up. So I can still breathe in through my nose and out through my mouth, but if I'm running at a 5-minute pace, it might be a little bit slower. Whereas I speed things up, Obviously you can imagine that would be a little bit harder to maintain when you're actually running. So when it comes to breathing during running, as we talked about before, we're trying to enhance the efficiency of oxygen, the intake of that, and then also the removal of carbon dioxide from the body. On top of this, if we can regulate our nervous system better during the run, if you can stay in a more calm state, you're going to be in a better position to manage or maintain a lower heart rate. So moving forward from that, the other thing on top of this is what we start to look at is how quickly can we dial down our nervous system when it comes to finishing a run. So can you down regulate your nervous system and bring your breathing back down quite quickly as soon as you finish? Again, depends on the session that you're doing, but if you just finished at 80-85% of your maximum heart rate, how quickly can you get your heart rate back down? How quickly can you get your breathing back to a normal, more gentle breath, nice deep inhalations and exhalations? I'm really giving you the simple side of breathing techniques today. There's nothing fancy here. And just to add on to that concept, the same way that we were breathing before is the same way that you can finish a run. So prior to getting into that run, what were we doing? We're breathing in through the nose, we're breathing out through the nose. We're starting to slow down the breath, we're starting to extend the breath, we're creating a little bit more depth in the breath each time. However, let's just think maybe we're in the state where we just finished a run and our heart rate's still quite high. So let's say you've been doing some mouth breathing, or you've been able to breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. So we're going to start with a faster breath, and then we're just going to start to slow it down. So joining me in that comfortable position again, or even if you're walking along listening to this, we're going to breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth, starting with a faster rate of breathing. Starting to slow it down. Just through the nose now. Can you start to activate that diaphragmatic breath? Breathing in through the nose, into the belly, up into the ribs, all the way up into the chest. Exhale out through the nose, chest draws in, ribs hug in, belly hugs in. Inhale through the nose, belly, ribs up into the chest. Exhale out of the nose, drawing the chest in, ribs in, and the abdomen in. So, was that absolutely realistic to a post-run setting? Maybe not. But you should get the general gist now. When we look at controlling our breath, it can be as simple as taking control of nasal breathing outside of a run, before a run, after a run, outside of any of the training that you're doing. We should be focused on this nasal breathing. So they talk about belly breathing, but when we look at diaphragmatic breathing, we're not breathing literally into the belly. The lungs don't extend down into the digestive tract, but we're starting to focus on moving that air down into the deeper lobes of the lungs, therefore getting more capacity with each breath. So tying in the nasal breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, and making sure we even look to that yogic or traditional yogic breath where we're breathing deep into the lungs, expanding out through the rib cage, and then all the way up. So we're using the base, the mid, and then the upper section of the lungs, trying to get as much air in, and then obviously removing stale air or removing carbon dioxide each time as well. So it can be that simple, guys, when it comes to breath. Nasal breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, that traditional yogic breathing. These can be some of the simplest ways to improve your lung capacity, down-regulate your nervous system in times you need. I won't talk about today, but there's other ways you can up-regulate the nervous system using your breath as well. All right, so one little bonus tip that I'm adding in today, when it comes to nasal breathing. Now, you guys might not want to wear these around, but if you're someone that notices you struggle with nasal breathing, one thing that I've found very effective for me and how my nasal passage is designed is using something like these. I'm in Brisbane, Australia, and in our chemists over here and even our supermarkets, they sell these. The brand is Breathe Right. They're nasal strips. and I just picked these up at the supermarket. I got the extra strength ones this week, and I actually noticed a fair bit of a difference when it came to my run this morning and wearing it throughout the night. So when you're going to sleep, when you're going on your runs, definitely invest in getting some nasal strips if you struggle with that nasal breathing. Another thing that I'll add to this too is that if you're getting into nasal breathing when you're running, don't get frustrated at yourself if you can't maintain it for a whole run. It's going to be a lot harder to do dependent on how your nasal passage is designed and how efficiently you can actually breathe that way, but also just getting used to practicing it over time. So when I first started doing it, two things that I needed to do was actually bring my heart rate down lower. If I was pushing my speeds too much, that's where I just started to get that air hunger building up, and I'll immediately go to the mouth breathing back to my old patterns. So I just started to slow the paces down, and that started to help me in building my ability to use nasal breathing. The other thing there too is don't feel like you have to do it for the whole run. And what I'd recommend even there, if you're still struggling with it, is just build it up over time. Like if you've got 45 to 60 minutes of running, do it for 10 to 15 minutes and add a few minutes or maybe 5 minutes each week until you can maintain it for the whole time. Those would be my two little tips there. Final bonus tip I've got for you guys today when it comes to anyone out there who has got a race event coming up and you're getting nervous, or you're competing in a sport, you're getting nervous, or you're just in your head about something. 3 things that I'm going to tie together that we actually do at the Daily Discomfort Run Club is movement, breath work, and what we call connection. So this is our discussion at the end of it. So if I was on my own and I wanted to touch on these 3 elements and I've been in my head about something, let's say it's race week, I've just gone for a run this morning. There's my movement. It was time to do breath work. I did a little bit of breath work with you guys then. Now it's time, if I'm nervous about something, if I've got thoughts ruminating in my head, to connect the dots, but to connect to where this anxiety is coming from, where these fears are coming from, what I'm worried about, and starting to explain that to myself, not by just thinking about it, but by putting it down on paper. So this is something that I did when I had my little Muay Thai fight a few years ago. First time jumping into a ring outside of sparring, obviously. And I was nervous that week a few days before. And so I'd do my breath work, a little bit of meditation in the morning. And I'd just start to write out what was going on in my head, what I was worried about, fearful of. And I just started to back myself a bit more. So if you're getting nervous about something, something's been taking up a lot of real estate in your mind, go for a run or go to the gym, go train, do some breath work after. And when it comes to the journaling side of things, you're probably going to already notice that you're in a calmer state of mind, especially after doing that breath work there, but you've exerted yourself beforehand. Now, when it comes to the journaling side of things, this is where you just start to ask questions. Lucky enough these days, you could probably prompt ChatGPT with some really good questions. However, just start to write down what you're feeling at the time. What are the feelings that you're feeling? Are you feeling fear? Are you feeling a sense of anxiety, which is going to tie in with that fear? But where's that coming from? Like if I've got the marathon this weekend and I'm not nervous at this point, but if I was, I'm scared I'm not going to finish the race, or I'm not going to hit the time that I want to hit. I'm writing that down. All right, why do I feel that way? And a lot of the time, you're probably not going to give yourself a lot of evidence to say why you won't do the things. And that's kind of the premise with the exercise. One of the best things I've got told in the past is present your case to a jury. So if I go, I'm not going to be able to finish the marathon this weekend, or I'm not going to be able to hit that time, I'm going to have to explain that why. I'm going to have to explain that to the jury in front of me. What would I say? Let's look at the reasons why I would. I've been training for the past, let's say 6 months for this and beyond. I've been looking after my nutrition, making sure my body's fueled. I've been focusing on getting the sleep that I need the majority of the time. I've been doing the strength training that I need to do it. I've been doing my breath work. I've been journaling. All right, let's go look at the things that would tell me that I can't do it. See, like I haven't really got a whole lot of evidence there to feed into that feeling of me not being able to. At the end of the day, fear and anxiety is just going to be one of those things that holds you back. It's always the anticipation, but a lot of the time there's just self-doubt there, And if you've been someone who's been training, you've been looking after your nutrition, your sleep, you do things like breath work, you take the extra courses of action to actually prepare yourself, try that exercise if you're getting nervous about something. Why aren't you going to be able to do this? Breath work, journal it down. Prior to that, do your run, do your gym set. So I hope that cleared up a few things on how simple getting your breath under control can be when it comes to calming down your nervous system and even improving your lung capacity when it comes to running. As simple as it can be breath work when you're running, just breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth. If it's a low intensity run, maybe you can stick to nasal breathing as the run intensity starts to just starting to increase the rate of breathing. There could be points where you maybe have to go to that mouth breathing, but I think over time you're probably going to notice you just get more efficient with the nasal breath and out through the mouth. And then finally, when it comes to winding down after the run, you're obviously going to have a higher rate of breath there, and you start to slowly bring the rate of breath down, slowly move into the nasal breathing, slowly start to re-engage that diaphragmatic breath, and then moving into that. And after a while of you actually practicing breath work, you're going to create more self-awareness of where your breath should be at times where it starts to get short, it starts to get shallow. And this is going to be one of the best things that you can do for your health and longevity to control stress in your body and regulate your nervous state. Guys, that's all for today. First podcast episode dropped on Sunday, so that's going to be a weekly thing, dropping Sundays at 6 a.m. They'll be getting filmed and edited on the Saturday or earlier in the week, and these videos will keep coming out on a Wednesday night. I've got the marathon this Sunday, so I'll give you a bit of an update next week on how that goes, and also put some maybe tips, learnings, mistakes made. We'll see what happens with that performance and see what we can improve down the line. Hope you enjoyed the video today. Let me know with any comments or feedback, any content that you'd like to see in future. Otherwise, guys, see you next time.